Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. When I came out of the room, Mother was pacing anxiously near the door. I asked in surprise, "What's wrong, Mother? Is everything all right?" Hearing my voice, she instinctively turned towards me and, shedding tears, said, "Your aunt called an hour ago saying Kashmala left home, but she hasn't arrived here yet, even though it's only a 10-minute walk from your aunt's house. See where she might be. I'm very worried." Or, "Do one thing, call your aunt. I don't have balance." My mother looked quite distressed. I instantly felt angry at Kashmala and, looking at Mother, said in an angry tone, "Why do you allow her to go? You know it's not good to go to someone's house every day." While Mother, sitting on the cot, angrily said, "I've told that girl 1,000 times, but she doesn't understand. Your aunt has 2 daughters. She stays with them. There's no girl here." I also sat next to Mother and tried to call Aunt, but due to bad weather, the call wasn't connecting to Aunt's number. After a while, there was a chance of rain. I told Mother and went outside, saying I would bring her. Perhaps she was delayed in coming. After walking for 10 minutes, I reached Aunt's house, and just as we thought, Kashmala was sitting with Aunt's daughters chatting. I said angrily, "Do you have any sense, girl, or have you sold it off? You made Aunt call to say you were coming home, and now you haven't even left here. Do you know how much Mother is crying? She was constantly pacing at the door thinking Kashmala would come now, but you're sitting here talking." My anger reached the 7th heaven. Hearing my roar, she trembled and immediately stood up saying, "Brother, I was just leaving. Zoe's friend came, that's why I was a little late. I'm going." Saying this, she adjusted her dupatta on her head and quickly came out, knowing that if she stayed there any longer, she would be subjected to my wrath. As soon as I came out, I started again. The weather looked quite bad. There was a high chance of rain, which made me even more nervous. I scolded her, saying, "Walk quickly, lest it rains on the way." No sooner had I said this than a sudden heavy downpour began. "Ya Allah khair, oh God, all is well," I involuntarily uttered. And holding her hand, I stood aside. But the rain was so heavy that both of us were completely drenched. Now we could neither go back to Aunt's house, nor were we fit to go home. Aunt's house was far, and so was ours. We were stuck in the middle of the road. I looked at Kashmala, and she was shivering with cold. The rain was also cold, so it was natural to feel cold. I shook my head in denial and wrapped her in my arms, and slowly started walking towards home because there was no point now. If we stayed longer, it would get dark, and staying out with a girl for too long didn't seem appropriate to me. But I had only walked a short distance when Kashmala's condition started to worsen. She had been very sensitive to cold since childhood, and even now she was in a bad state. She was constantly trying to burrow into me. The rain intensified, and now I started to feel nervous. There was silence everywhere because everyone knew it was going to rain, so everyone was huddled in their homes sleeping. I took Kashmala and stood under the shade of a tree. The rain was relatively less there, but the cold was extreme. I held Kashmala to my chest and continuously encouraged her that the rain would stop soon, but she was trembling terribly. Her lips were turning blue. I also started to feel nervous about how to handle her. I took off my shirt and gave it to her. I was wearing a t-shirt inside. When leaving home, I thought of taking a jacket, but I dismissed the thought, thinking Aunt's house was nearby and I would quickly bring Kashmala back. But now, looking at the situation, I was very angry at myself. I sat down on the ground, spreading my legs, while Kashmala clung to me, shivering. Her constant contact with my body was creating warmth in me. Yes, she was my sister, my younger sister, only 19 years old. But I was slowly falling into a strange state. Due to the cold, I was also shivering intensely, and the same was true for Kashmala. I continuously stroked her back, trying to warm her, but as time passed, my state began to change. I felt restless. A strange sensation spread through my body. Forgetting everything, I was looking at Kashmala not as a sister, but as a woman. I had completely forgotten that this girl was my sister. I suddenly pulled Kashmala closer to me. Kashmala thought I was trying to warm her, but now the matter was something else. I slowly began to cross my boundaries. My hand brazenly moved over her body. While doing all this, it didn't occur to me at all what Kashmala would feel if I made a mistake. If Mother found out about this, what would she think of us both? I looked around, but no one was there. I had now started my work, while Kashmala suddenly straightened up and, looking at me, cried out, "Brother, what are you doing? Get away! I'm scared!" She was only 19 years old. Yes, she must have had some idea about these things, but she would have had no idea that her own brother would become an enemy of her honor. She suddenly began to sob and cried out, "No, brother, don't do this. Someone will see. If Mother finds out, she will kill me. Get away from me, brother, it hurts." But my eyes were blinded by lust. I needed warmth, and my body only craved a woman's body. My mind had shut down. I was paralyzed from the ability to hear, and slowly I continued to do what a brother cannot even imagine. Kashmala, sitting beside me, was sobbing, struggling, pushing me away, but it was not possible. I had done everything and was panting badly. The same was true for Kashmala. She was lying exhausted on top of me. For a long time, I tried to regain my breath, and when my condition improved slightly, I looked around. It was still silent, but the rain had stopped. I stroked Kashmala's head and, bringing her back to consciousness, said, "The rain has stopped. Come to your senses. We need to go home." My tone was cold, as if she awoke from a semi-slumber hearing my voice, and suddenly she separated from me. Her condition was worse than mine. She was still trembling. She quickly straightened her clothes and, after a glance at me, walked forward. Now I felt ashamed. What had I done? I felt it immensely. Suddenly, tears came to my eyes out of remorse, and I cursed myself, saying, "What have I done? Why didn't death come to me before doing this? Oh Allah, what will my sister think of me now?" Every brother is an ideal in his sister's eyes, but I had lost my status in my sister's eyes. I had done what she couldn't even imagine. I was extremely angry at my condition. My heart wanted to end myself. For a long time, I walked in silence. After a few moments' walk, our house came into view. As soon as we, the brother and sister, entered the house, Mother came out of the room looking worried, and seeing us both safe and sound, she breathed a sigh of relief. And scolding Kashmala, she said, "This is no way. If you weren't leaving the house at that time, what was the need to make Aunt call?" Mother was saying the same thing as me, while I quietly went to my room. I no longer had the courage to meet the eyes of my sister and mother, while Kashmala also went to her room after answering Mother. She must have been very tired too. Coming to the room, an excessive amount of guilt enveloped me. What had I done? I couldn't understand anything. I had defiled the sacred relationship of brother and sister, and this thing was not digestible to me now. I wished I could end myself. I felt disgusted with my existence. I went into the washroom and stood under cold water for a long time, trying to control the rage rising within me. But even then, I couldn't control myself. In anger, I started hitting myself. My heart wanted to commit suicide, but I didn't have the courage to do it. I sat crying in the washroom. Tears were now flowing from my eyes. I kept thinking about what state my sister would be in. I thought, why not go to Kashmala's room and check on her? But I didn't have the courage. She was a girl, and I had destroyed her entire life. I knew that wherever she got married now, she would have to prove her innocence. Who knows what problems would arise in her life now? My sister was still in matric, and that's why I was even more distressed. Time was slowly passing. That night was very agonizing for me. The next morning when I woke up, the house was unusually quiet. I came out of the room and Mother was moving around uneasily. When I asked the reason, she said Kashmala was very unwell. She had a fever. She had been burning with fever since last night. It must have happened because of getting wet in the rain. We need to take her to the doctor, but that girl isn't getting up. Your father has also gone to get a rickshaw. Hearing this, I felt even more ashamed. My eyes dropped in shame. My heart wanted to go to my sister and apologize to her, but I absolutely had no courage. I was still standing with Mother, listening to her, when suddenly Father entered the house in a hurry and, looking at Mother, said, "I've brought a rickshaw. Quickly bring Kashmala. Let's show her to the doctor, lest the fever rises too much." I quietly sat aside while Father glanced at me and went into Kashmala's room. I had absolutely no courage to go and face Kashmala. I knew Father was very angry. He wanted to kill me because I wasn't doing anything but sitting silently. But I was helpless. I couldn't tell them my condition, the pain I was going through. A little while later, Keshmala came out of the room with Mother, but her health was indeed quite bad. She went to the doctor with Father and Mother, and I felt even more ashamed. Time was passing, and Mother and Father were not coming back. I had called Father once or twice, but he had deliberately cut the call. I dialed Mother's number, but her phone was at home. I knew Kashmala's phone was also at home. I sat silently now, waiting for them to come back. Approximately an hour later, all three of them returned home. Kashmala's condition was now somewhat better. Surely she had been given a drip or an injection, which had significantly improved her health. She glanced at me and went to her room. She didn't say anything to anyone, which meant the chances of me getting caught were very low. As soon as Kashmala went into her room, I breathed a sigh of relief that my sister was fine now, and I could go to my room. But just as I got up from the sofa to go upstairs, Father suddenly roared, "You shameless person, don't you care how much trouble I'm having taking your sister to the hospital? At least one could walk along or come from behind, but I have never seen a pharaoh brother like you in my whole life." Father's words felt personal to me, and I quietly went upstairs with my head bowed. I was not in a state to talk to anyone. As soon as I entered the room, I performed ablution, spread the prayer mat, and stood on it. I offered the dua prayer and, raising my hands in supplication to Allah, addressed my Lord. "O Lord of Mustafa, O my generous Master, O Allah, I know you are a most magnificent Lord. Your glory is immense. Forgive me, forgive my sins, whatever mistakes I have made. For that, I am kneeling before you. I am admitting my mistake. O Allah, take me out of this guilt." I sat before Allah for a long time, admitting my mistake and seeking forgiveness. And then, passing my hands over my face, I lay down to sleep. Time slowly passed. Approximately 2 days had passed since that incident. The weather was now much better, so my job had started. I left for work early in the morning after breakfast and returned home late at night, finding everyone asleep. I had done this intentionally so that I wouldn't have to face my sister. Time was passing like this, and today was Sunday. Mother and Father had coincidentally gone to Uncle's house. Only Kashmala and I were home. Mother had strictly instructed me not to go too far and to stay with my sister as they would be back soon. I was in my room, working on office tasks, when suddenly someone knocked on the room door. I was surprised. Who could possibly be in my room? And suddenly Kashmala came to mind, because there was no one else in the house besides Kashmala. I immediately closed my laptop and stood up. I was very nervous. Before I could say anything, Kashmala opened the door and came in. She was wearing a white shalwar kameez and had her dupatta neatly on her head. I was quite flustered. Before I could say anything, Kashmala looked at me and spoke in a confident tone. "I need to talk to you about something important." I'd expected her to be very nervous and scared to talk to me, but that wasn't the case at all. She seemed quite confident. I was surprised what she wanted to talk about, and when she started talking, I was covered in shame. She looked at me and said, "You remember what you did to me under the tree 2 days ago?" I lowered my gaze in shame. I had no words to say. I just sat there like a statue of silence in front of my sister. She looked at me and continued, "Your actions have greatly affected my life. If I hadn't composed myself at that moment, I wouldn't be standing here alive and well in front of you today." Hearing my sister's words, I looked at her in surprise. She continued, "When I came home, I was so distressed that I was ready to commit suicide. But by controlling myself in time, I refrained from doing it. But now I have decided that I don't want to live, because you know and I know that when I get married, this very thing will come up first in front of my husband. And when I am accused, what will I say then? Who will I tell then that I was innocent and my brother was guilty? He showed his barbarity and snatched my innocence. He left me nowhere." She was standing in front of me, questioning, and I had nothing to say. I just sat with my head bowed in silence. Every fiber of my body was screaming and crying. Suddenly, she walked step by step closer to me. Because my head was bowed, I didn't realize it. Suddenly, she placed her hand on my shoulder. I looked at my sister in surprise. She smiled at me. Her smile was beyond my comprehension. Pressing my shoulder, she said, I will only commit suicide on one condition. Do what you did to me that day again. And if anyone finds out about this, no one will be worse than me. Saying this, she sat next to me, and I was plunged into a sea of astonishment. My ability to understand was paralyzed. I had thought that my sister had come to shame me, to make me realize that I had done wrong to her. But instead, she was offering me to do the same thing again. And I was looking at her existence with wide, startled eyes. I could bear everything, but this was beyond my comprehension. I shook my head in denial and said, "You're joking. You're surely going to do this and then tell mom and dad, and they'll kick me out of this house. Is that your plan?" Look, Keshmala, I wasn't in my senses that day. You're 19 years old and studying biology. You'd know that when a person feels a need, they can't stop themselves, especially the man. And with a woman of his own age beside him, he can't control himself at any cost. The same thing happened to me that day, and I was continuously distressed by seeing your condition. That's why I crossed my limits. But I am extremely ashamed. Try to understand my condition. But Kashmala suddenly grabbed my hands and looking into my eyes said, "I know all your conditions. I'm not blaming you. I'm just putting a condition in front of you. Do everything with me right now, or I'll tell mom and dad every single one of your actions, letter by letter, and get you thrown out of this house. You don't know what I am." I was plunged into a sea of astonishment. Why was she saying such things? That day she was pushing me away, stopping me from coming close. I remembered all her crying, sobbing, pleading. And today her sudden change was beyond my comprehension. But suddenly I remembered that after a while of me doing that, Kashmala had gone limp. Did Kashmala want all of this? I was very surprised. Suddenly, Kashmala was pressing herself against me and slowly pressing her body against mine. I was a man and youth was at its peak. How could I control myself? I also slowly moved closer to Kashmala. The first time I had used Kashmala, and now Kashmala was using my body to quench the fire rising within her. Just as I had thought, Kashmala had used me today. After fulfilling her needs, she quietly went to her room, but I still felt ashamed today. What had happened was beyond my comprehension. My sister was 19 years old, and I didn't want to do all this with her, but I couldn't refuse her. I also had a fear in my heart that if she told mom and dad anything about that day, they wouldn't let me live, and besides that, I also had a guilty conscience. To obtain pleasure, I had forgotten that Kashmala was my sister. If she was saying such a thing, I should have slapped her twice and made her a human being. But I also played with her life to obtain pleasure. Time was passing, and in the evening, mom and dad returned home. Kashmala was sound asleep in her room. I also tried to sleep because I was quite tired, but there was too much work, so I couldn't sleep at all and was engrossed in office work. A little later, mother came into the room and looking at me said, "Are you still stuck with this laptop? Have you eaten?" I shook my head in denial. My gaze was still fixed on the laptop. She sat next to me. I turned my attention to her and asked in a questioning tone, "What's wrong? Is everything all right?" Because mother was mostly found in Kashmala's room or her own, she didn't prefer to come to my room much. And I also didn't particularly like anyone coming into my room, and mother knew this very well. She looked at me and said, "We went to your uncle's house. Today they talked about their elder son for Kashmala. Your father is considering it, but your opinion is also necessary. After all, you are her elder brother." While I was completely silent, how could I express any opinion about Kashmala at that time? Suddenly, uncle's elder son came to my mind. He was a very hot-tempered person. If he found out about Kashmala's actions, he would never forgive Kashmala, but would divorce her, and I didn't want my sister's life to be ruined because of me. Yes, she was also in the prime of her youth and young, so she couldn't control herself. I looked at mother and, trying to make an excuse, said, "Yes, uncle's house is better for our Kashmala, but there's a problem. Uncle's elder son, Shehzad, is very hot-tempered, and our Kashmala is very innocent." At my slightest roar, she starts to tremble so badly. Then how will she tolerate Shehzad, who is a cousin? Think about it, but this relationship doesn't seem appropriate to me. I was saying this for another reason, because I knew that on the first night of marriage, Shehzad would find out what had happened to Kashmala. That's why I diverted the conversation. Hearing my words, Mother became silent. She was probably waiting for my opinion. She shook her head in denial and said, "You're right, the same thought came to my mind too, but I kept quiet lest your father get angry. Now both you and I have the same thought, and I will talk to your father calmly." I gave a slight nod, and Mother left the room, while my mind started working at the speed of a horse. I had decided that I would do something so that no one would know about Kashmala's actions. I wanted to meet with doctors, but for now I left everything as it was because I couldn't handle myself yet. Time was slowly passing. A week had passed since that incident, and a week later when Mother and Father went to Uncle's house again, Kashmala came back to my room, but today I had decided that I had to control my desires. She was my sister. If I kept doing all this with her, God Almighty would never forgive me. I would be burned in the fires of hell. Yes, I had made a mistake once, but I didn't want to ruin myself by repeating that mistake, nor did I want to ruin my sister's life. She sat next to me and tried to press against my body again. But today I had had enough. I gave her a resounding slap across her face and looking at her said, "Beware, if you ever come into my room again, I'll break your face. Enough is enough. We have spread enough dirt. In the future, if you even dare to do such a thing, I'll set you straight. What will you tell Mom and Dad? I'll tell Mom and Dad what you're doing." While Kashmala was terribly frightened by my roar. She was 19 years old. It was very easy to scare her. She suddenly burst into tears and left the room, while I breathed a sigh of relief because if I had been carried away by emotions and done something wrong with her again today, I would never have been able to look myself in the eye. Time was slowly passing. Communication between us both had completely stopped. Whenever I saw Kashmala, I felt a strange embarrassment, and I would move away from the scene. For many days, I had been seeing Kashmala engrossed in her mobile phone. Her mobile was always in her hand, and there was a beautiful smile on her face. Sometimes she would be standing somewhere chatting, and sometimes somewhere else. Suddenly, my mind started working at the speed of a horse. I had also gone through that age, so I knew everything. Kashmala was talking to a boy, and this was 100% true. I very quietly checked Kashmala's mobile, and contrary to my thinking, my mind stopped working. Kashmala was talking improperly to boys, and seeing these messages, the ground slipped from under my feet. My sister could go to this extent. I had never imagined. I angrily went to Mother. I wanted to show her what her daughter was doing and why she wasn't keeping an eye on her, but I remained silent because I also had a secret. If I humiliated Kashmala in front of Mother, Kashmala would never keep silent about the incident between us both. She would definitely make me look bad to save herself. So I kept quiet. I wanted to talk to Kashmala, thinking maybe she would understand me, but this was also my delusion. I came to her room and she was quietly sleeping soundly. I cast a sad glance at her and shook my head in denial, then came out of the room. I had decided that I would definitely talk to Kashmala. Due to the marriage proposal, Mom and Dad were visiting Uncle's house frequently, so Kashmala and I were often alone at home. But I had absolutely not taken advantage of the solitude, because my honor would no longer allow it. Yes, I knew that I had pushed my sister towards sin. I had ruined her life with my own hands. But despite that, I didn't want to do any such wrong thing with her again that would displease me. We belonged to a respectable family. If I did all these things with my own sister, then being from such a family would be a curse. Today was Sunday. Mother and Father, as usual, had gone to Uncle and Aunt's house. I was out with my friends. I didn't know when Mom and Dad had left. Father had sent a message that you should go home. Kashmala is alone at home. We usually didn't leave Kashmala alone at home because we had often heard of many incidents where someone broke into the house and sexually assaulted the girl, or the girl was abducted from home. Despite this, we had problems at home. There were many issues, so we would not leave Kashmala alone at any cost. That's why I said goodbye to my friend and headed towards my house. Whatever had happened between us both, despite that, I love my sister very much. Leaving her alone didn't seem appropriate to me either, but I didn't know what I was about to witness today and what crossroads I was about to face. A little later, I reached home. I had the key, so I unlocked the door and entered. As soon as I entered the house, I realized that someone else besides Kashmala was present in the house. I was suddenly stunned. My gaze involuntarily fell on a bike parked inside the house. Was there a boy inside the house? This thought made the ground slip from under my feet. I ran my hand over my face and moved inside. My face was red. I truly felt extremely nervous, and a prayer was on my lips that nothing would happen as I was suspecting. As soon as I entered the house, just as I had thought, right in front of me, my sister was engaged in inappropriate acts with that boy, and that boy was none other than my own friend. Seeing Kashan and my sister Kashmala in an inappropriate state, I was dumbfounded. For a few moments, I couldn't say anything. My ability to think and understand was paralyzed. The rule of every friendship is that a friend's sister is also a friend's sister, but my friend had stabbed me in the back. I roared in anger. "What is all this happening, Kashmala? Come to your senses." She, who was leaning over Kashan, performing immoral acts, suddenly recoiled with a jolt and trembled upon seeing me standing in front of her. Tears came to my eyes. All of this was my doing, which was now unfolding before me. Kashan immediately adjusted his clothes and ran like a madman. I wished I could grab Kashan and beat him black and blue, but with what right could I hit him? I had done the same thing. Kashan had fled, and I was looking at Kashmala with tearful eyes. I walked step by step and stood in front of Kashmala, and without giving her a chance to understand, I slapped myself repeatedly on the face. I was frantically hitting myself, while Kashmala suddenly flinched because she had absolutely no expectation that I would do such a thing. I went to the kitchen and placed a knife on my wrist. I looked at Kashmala and said in a tearful voice, "You will not be punished for this mistake you are making. I will be punished for this mistake because I put you on the wrong path. I didn't stop you from doing all this. Instead, I did wrong with you. I have no right to live. I have lost my status as a brother." Hearing my words, Kashmala started crying terribly, and joining her hands in front of me, pleaded, "For God's sake, brother, don't do this. I promise I will never do anything again that causes you shame." My sister was quite young. I knew that all this happens at that age, but I had never imagined that she could fall to this extent. I joined my hands in front of her and said, "For God's sake, Kashmala, if I die, let me die. If death comes to me, let it come today. But please don't play with your life like this. You have a whole life ahead of you. I know I have ruined your life. You are no longer worthy of marrying anyone, but for God's sake, have mercy on yourself. Shehzad wants to marry you. Uncle and aunt like you. I am contacting a doctor to fix your condition, but you also have to cooperate with me. If you don't take courage, we both will never be able to survive in this world. This happens to many girls. I admit it's my fault, and I am the culprit, but why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you doing these wrong things with other boys and opening the door to hell for yourself in the afterlife? I know I am asking for Allah's forgiveness, and He is forgiving me, but when you do this, I also get punished for it because I forced you to do this. Look, I am joining my hands in front of you. Have mercy on me." Hearing my words and seeing my distress, my sister took pity on herself and me, and she suddenly sat on the ground crying and said in a voice filled with pain, "I know you are absolutely right, but I become helpless. I cannot stop myself." I went to her and placed my hand on her head and looking at her said, "Come towards God. Pray, always stay in ablution. You will never feel like doing this." Hearing my words, she nodded slightly and went to the washroom. Right in front of me, she performed ablution, and both of us, brother and sister, offered prayers and cried and begged Allah for forgiveness for our mistake, and promised each other that we would not do any wrong thing that our Allah does not like. Slowly, time began to pass, and I was keeping a strict eye on Kashmala because now it was my responsibility to bring my sister towards betterment, and I tried my best to improve her life. I contacted a lady doctor and told her about all her conditions. While the lady doctor said that she could do everything, but your sister would have to cooperate a little. Meanwhile, Kashmala was completely willing to do this. Mom and Dad had said yes to uncle and aunt because Shehzad was a very capable person. Yes, he was hot-tempered, but he was a boy from our family and could prove to be better for Kashmala. But this was a very big lesson in my life. One should never lose to one's desires. Otherwise, You will never be able to look yourself in the eye in life.